Hi everyone, welcome to the October session of this month's Nature Diary. And today, as you all know, we're going to be painting the Algerian hedgehog, which this month, I chose it for this month because they're having babies at the moment, which is quite exciting. So there's been a few rescues of some, unfortunately, that have got a bit lost. But it did make me think there's also been some success or positive stories of people finding mums with their babies behind rocks and things. So yeah, they're fine if they're in open areas and protected enough from the road. So let me share a few pictures with you. So it was a bit difficult to find pictures of hedgehogs with their legs showing because I wanted their feet to show for our painting. But I did find some in the end. I think this one's a little bit, I think he's a bit of a baby and maybe a bit skinny, so we will make him a bit fatter in the painting. So the correct name is Algerian hedgehog. Some people also call it the vagrant hedgehog or the North African hedgehog, and it's because it's from North Africa and was introduced to places like Malta. And Maltese, the name, I hope a few of you know it, is Unfood. And there are lots of different hedgehogs around the world, but there's only one species that lives in the Maltese Islands. And it lives in open spaces like the countryside and like large gardens that are close to the countryside. It's a mammal because mammals have babies, not eggs. Well, that's one of the things that makes mammals mammals anyway. It's protected by law. And as you know, they have those prickly spines which are actually quite soft when they're born. But then as they get, it's only within 3 weeks' time, they become quite hard, these little hairs, and long and stiff. And then that becomes their defense mechanism. So when they're sleeping, they're rolled into a ball, and when they see a predator as well, they roll themselves into a ball to protect themselves. So it's quite a good defense mechanism that they have. When they're born, they can have up to 7 little hedgehogs in a litter, and the babies stay in the nest until they're 3 weeks old, and then they follow their mum out into the wild to look for food. They eat, I'm not sure I've heard this about the Algerian hedgehog, but something I read today said they eat small mice. I'm not sure if they do here, but they definitely eat snails. So that's really good because we have so many snails in the winter. They can eat things like lizards and frogs and snakes, but I think ours mainly eat snails and insects. I'm pretty sure they eat cockroaches as well. One of the biggest threats to hedgehogs here are cars, and then of course roads, because roads split up their habitat, and cars unfortunately of course run them over. So whenever you are in a car with someone, please ask them to drive slowly. It's not just because of hedgehogs, it's also safer to drive slowly, but especially at night, because hedgehogs are nocturnal, which means they come out at night, so we can be a bit careful about them when we're driving. And also pesticides that are put on the fields, on vegetables and fruit, because if they eat an insect or a snail that's been in those fields, then it poisons the hedgehog. I should have been changing the photos, sorry. These are the 2 photos we're going to be using to draw. It's a mom and her baby. I quite like this photo. And remember that, so if you find an injured hedgehog or a hedgehog that's out during the day, it's a bit abnormal to see them out in the day, but so if it looks a bit disorientated, it might need some help. And Nature Trust have a wildlife rescue team which will rescue hedgehogs. You just need to give them a call. The number is quite easy to remember, so it's 59, so 99999, and then 505 at the end, which looks like SOS. So it's quite an easy number to remember. And as usual, this is quite a good page on the National Geographic. There's some lovely photos here, especially this one, very cute. And this shows where hedgehogs are in the world. So the yellow parts here are where hedgehogs are. And this, I thought this was quite an interesting drawing. I just came across this randomly. It's very patient to draw this because you see all the detail. But I thought it'd be quite interesting to show you. So I'm just going to stop the share and we can get started. I'm going to send you a link to the images that I used. I'll put these in the chat. And so I didn't really copy them, which is good because then it means the copyright issues are fine. So I'm going to spotlight this video for everyone. So you should be able to see the hedgehog I already painted. I'll put that to the side and we can start drawing. So of course, as per usual, you need your pencil and a rubber. And like we usually do, we're going to start with the main shape first. So you need to decide where you're going to place your hedgehog and how big you want it. I'm going quite big on this piece of paper. The paper is landscape, but I can't have my phone landscape because I don't know, it's strange that it doesn't let me do that, but I think it's some setting in Zoom. So first, I'm going to draw the body, and I guess it's a bit of an aubergine shape. It's kind of heavy at the back, or tilted rather at the back. Yeah, so I've drawn that at an angle. So you can see it's that's the angle. And then for the head, I'm trying to think, it's kind of triangular, but it's not with sharp corners, of course. I just find that drawing these shapes like this makes it a bit less scary, because when you see something you think, how am I going to draw that? And if you just draw shapes first, it usually works out. And so you have your legs here, and so I'm just drawing a rough line, and the paw comes there. So this is all very sketchy, and I'm keeping my pencil quite light as well. And I've recently changed my pencil as well. I was using, you know, when you look at a pencil here, it tells you the hardness of the pencil, and I was using HB. Now I've changed to B, and I think it's a bit easier actually. And so I'm going to put the legs here. And I've changed a few things to the photo because when I did this the first time, yeah, that's another thing you should do really, is if you draw a line that's parallel to the edge of the paper, just so we make sure that it's kind of on the same, it looks like it's standing on the same area. I think these legs are a bit long and the body might have to come down a bit. I did change the way the legs were because looking at that photo, the leg at the back hardly shows. And it just looked a bit strange when I drew it. So I kind of made it show a little bit more. So that's good for a rough sketch. It's probably an idea to measure, I mean, it's a bit difficult because we're not exactly following the photo, but if we measure the, like looking, ooh, it's reflecting a lot, isn't it? When you look at the photo, and so you measure the width of the head, which is about that much, and that should fit into the body twice. But I think I'll make the body a bit bigger anyway. So on my drawing, that's the width of the head, and it should fit twice, and it's a bit more than twice, so we should be fine. So now I'm going to make it, or try and make it look more like a hedgehog and less like an aubergine. So I'm just going to go round the line. I mean, this line can stay quite round actually. And I might make it a little bit longer at the back. And then here, obviously the body joins onto the head and there's no separation. And it comes down like this. And then you just start drawing around the shapes. So the ear on the right hand side, we can't see that much. It's just kind of a suggestion. And then it kind of helps sometimes to draw the colouring, just so you know where you are. And then this ear here we can see quite well. And it's not completely round. I'm making it a little bit of a crooked shape because it's not round. Maybe I think it needs to come up a little bit, because when you use your pencil and look at the angle, yeah, I think that's a bit better. So you can rub out the sketchy pencil marks so that you can see how the shape's forming. I think this is a little bit too big, so just made it, yeah, that's a bit better. And the shape of the face, they have such cute faces. In my hair up. Except I can't find a head. And so the cheek comes out. I mean, we can't, it's just a kind of suggestion of fur. And so it comes down to here to its snout. And then the end of its snout is slightly raised. So if I rub out the rough lines around it, you can see a bit better. And then the nose is kind of, they've got a very cartoon-like nose. But when I was looking at it closely, obviously when I was drawing it, it's quite an interesting shape. So I'm going to draw the eye just so I feel like I've got the proportions of the face right, or the head. And the eye is kind of, I know this is round here, but they kind of have this indent where it goes in, and it's kind of like a teardrop. I'm trying to take some of the pencil marks away. And then the nose, we can draw the colouring around the snout first, just to give us some reference. And the eye is kind of roughly the same size as the nose, or vice versa. And the nose, if you look closely, so it comes up like this, and then has like an M shape, a stretched out M. And then it comes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Stimson, can you please move the papers?
Sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm seeing it on the screen. I think the ear needs to be a bit bigger and come up a bit. So yeah, the end of the nose. Maybe, yeah. It's interesting when you can see it on the screen. Some people say well, and I know it works as well, it's quite good to take photos of your work so that you can see. It makes you see it a bit differently. Yeah, I'm just going to make this ear a bit bigger. Yeah, I think that's, I guess maybe this makes it look a bit, Not sure if I've made the snout long enough. Maybe if I make this a bit skinnier. I think the hedgehog is one of the more difficult animals to draw, to be honest. And I'm just gonna draw where the spines end and where the fluff begins. And I'm going to I gave this one a bit of a cheek. Better get painting soon. And I'm gonna, because I moved the ear a lot, I'm gonna lift the eye a little bit. Okay, so then we come to the neck part and the chest. And we're kind of giving this one a bit of a longer body than the one on the photo. And so if we draw the hind leg first, so it comes down like this to its joint, and then kind of most animals have this shape in their joints. It's gone off the where I sketched the main shape, but that's fine. And then the paw paw kind of comes out like that. And these hedgehogs, I need to bring the photo closer. The Algerian hedgehog has 5 toes, but I think it's the European hedgehog has 4. So that's the one that lives in England. But I can only see 4. But sometimes when you're drawing things, I'm gonna try and fit. Yeah, fit 5 in. Sometimes they don't show. And then they have tiny, so small claws. Probably still quite effective at scratching things. And yeah, you should be really careful if handling a hedgehog. I mean, you should always wear gloves. If you have to pick one up, I mean, it's always better not to pick a wild animal up, really. But if it's not very well or you're trying to rescue it, you should wear gloves. And if you don't have any and you still have to pick it up, wash your hands very well afterwards. So yeah, this is the paw that I'm putting behind the other paw. Just for being able to sort of see both of them. And I think I've confused myself a little bit now. Let's just draw that there, and I'll bring the other paw out like this. And again, draw the same thing with the toes. We don't have to see the whole of the toe. And so put the heel in, and well, this one could be a little bit thicker. And move the other one back a little bit. And there's not going to be much detail on the one at the back. Okay, I think this ear looks a bit funny to me. Maybe it needs to come down there a little bit. Maybe I've made it too big now. Or maybe I'm obsessing too much. I mean, I think until you paint it, that's what happened to me the first time. It looks so much better when you start painting, hopefully. Okay, so let's start painting. I'm going to remove as much as I can, because especially around the body, just leave a really faint mark, pencil mark, where the body is, because we're not going to fill in the whole body completely. So you sort of don't want the pencil marks to show too much. And so grab your water. It's really 3 colors that I'm going to be using. But of course, if you want to paint the background a different color, that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to use burnt umber, one of the colors I seem to use a lot. It's very useful as a color. And so I'm going to pop some of that into my palette. And I'm going to use some yellow ochre. I mean, obviously, as usual, if you don't have these colors, the burnt umber is a dark or even a light brown would be fine if you're using poster colors or anything else. And then the yellow ochre is kind of a muddy kind of yellow, which so you could get that color by mixing yellow and brown together. And this is Payne's Grey, which is also another useful color in watercolor, because it just produces so many great different colors. And if you don't have that one, you're probably going to need a bit of black and some gray. So I'm going to spray my brown and ochre with water, just so kind of nice and wet. And I'm going to paint the body with water, like clear water, just because I don't want it to look too careful. I should have rubbed away that pencil mark. Okay. And we're going to leave most of where the white fur is on mainly white. Oh, it's saying I'm signed out for some reason, but hopefully everyone can still see and hear me. And Shalaya, I've just admitted you, sorry, I didn't notice that you joined late. So we've done the drawing. Hopefully you can catch up with us. Sorry about that. Maybe you can do a quick drawing of a hedgehog. So to test it, because we're just going to start painting it now. To test, I think that's been enough for the spikes. So we need to find a way of making these spikes. You can use a thinner brush. And I'm just going to go and say, yeah, it is going to spread because of the water, which I quite like. And the water on watercolor paper, it dries differently, and also because I probably didn't put it on evenly. Oh yeah, just remembered this. don't know how many of the bangs you can hear, so it's usually me dropping things. You should paint the spikes in the order in which, the direction in which they grow, to make it look the most realistic. I quite like the way, because of the water, I'm able to sort of pull it. Yeah, so it takes a little bit of patience. But it doesn't take that long though. It's also quite good. This brush is quite big. In fact, I didn't think it was going to be okay to use, but because it's got a good tip at the end, you can do quite fine lines. Make this bit between his ears look. I put the bit in between the white fur. Oops. So if you finish with the dark brown, then you can go in with your muddy yellow color and put a few marks. I think I'm going to mix my yellow ochre with some brown. Okay, so make a bit more of a yellowy color. Maybe not you don't have to put it all over the place, but just in some parts, because the spikes aren't all the same color, so it's just good to introduce a bit of a different color. Yeah, the area where I've wet the paper, like, some of it is blended together and some of it hasn't. I might go in and with a piece of tissue and make it a bit lighter. And then take, I think I should be here. I've taken some of the brown with not so much water on it. And you can keep adding layers, because that's with, if you're working with watercolor, that's what you're supposed to do, really. So you have your lighter colors at the end, at the bottom, I mean. And I'm going to use some of the Payne's grey, but mix that with a little bit of the burnt umber. And introduce a little, maybe not so much, but just to sort of have some dark bits. Just here and there. Like it didn't go as solid in the other one, but if you're not happy with parts of it, kind of lift some of it up. Some darker pieces. And you can keep adding spines, basically. Spikes, not spines. So I'm just going to, yeah, let's paint in the ears. It should be dry enough. I'm going to use a little bit of a smaller brush. And for this, I used the Payne's grey, so a grey that you have. And I'm going to paint it with water first. But I'm not painting it solidly and all the way, because at the bottom it blends into the white fur. And that's why it's quite good. I mean, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's quite good to put the water on first, because it makes it a bit softer. Okay, and then I'm going to take a bit of a lighter grey, and so when with lighter, I mean you just add water basically in this colour, and paint the other area, which doesn't need much painting because we can only see the tip of it. And I'm going to make this one a bit lighter in the middle. I think that makes it look a bit more rounded. And yes, sometimes I just use my fingers, which is always fun. I'm just gonna mix some grey and a little bit of yellow. So your muddy yellow, and really not use too much. So the brush is really quite dry. And I had my video switched off. Yeah, just need to plug in the battery. This needs to be a bit lighter. I'm going to wait till the top bit dries a bit until I before I introduce any more spikes at the top there. And yeah, I was painting a bit of a muddy colour because yeah, the fur on the face appears white, but it's not completely white. Maybe just a little bit of shadow, a shadowy colour at the bottom. I think I might go in with some white here at the top of the head. And so next we can use the grey again. And so just paint out from the nose. So it doesn't need to be, or it shouldn't be a block color really. And it's darker at the start and then it lightens up. I might introduce a little bit more. And I'm going to paint the eye. So it's kind of just filling in the shape of the eye. But I'm going in light at first. And then can make it a bit darker. So that's the nice thing about Payne's grey, that you can use different shades. And we need to, oh, actually, that's what I did with the other one. If you make, like we have with our irises, I think hedgehogs have the same thing. I think it might be a bit brown as well. If you do a round circle, I think there's a little bit of brown in there as well. And leave the inner part white. And then fill in the surrounding. And then we can make it darker around the edge. And we can also paint the nose next with the same color, the grey. And with the nose, the darker color is around the edges. Because I think it's sort of where the light's hitting it to make it look the shape that it is, which is kind of a bit rounded. A bit difficult to describe this shape. Maybe I shouldn't have made it stick out so much at the top. That's fine. And I also seem to, sometimes I paint with the light first and then sometimes I paint with the dark first. So now I can fill in, I guess sometimes it just depends on what makes sense at the time. Okay, so next we can paint the feet, the paws, and I'm going to mix the grey and brown together. I mean, I know it's greys and browns today, which is bit appropriate after this morning. But you can paint grass under its feet if you want to. So I'm going to a bit more natural than the paving slabs it's standing on here in the photo, but I guess it's probably in someone's garden in the photo. So I'm going to paint the back of the leg with this dark color, and then paint the front of the leg. And I think this makes it look rounded. And it is going to be a bit difficult to see the claws, but we can paint them in afterwards. And then take the color that I'm sort of drying my paintbrush. Maybe I don't need so much paint, just washed it. And then the middle section of the paw can be quite light. And maybe I'll put some of this in the chest, but maybe not too much. Oops. I want to make the area of the snout a little bit darker. And actually, the area on the left-hand side should be darker. Because that's probably where the shadow is. Definitely need to put some white at the top. I'm aware we're kind of 1 minute over time. But I'll try and finish soon. So yeah, I'm going to paint the back. That's a bit dark. Of both paws, and then maybe take a bit more brown. I'm not going to paint this on solidly actually, because there is some white fur showing. And the leg behind should be a bit darker because it's in shadow. So now I'm going to take a much smaller brush and I'm going to use the Payne's grey, but quite solidly, and paint in the, so not with too much water, although you need a little bit for it to move, and paint in the claws. Which are a bit difficult to paint. But even if you have like a suggestion of them, that's fine. And lastly, I don't know if you've guessed it, I need to give it some whiskers. So again, I've got the smallest brush I've got, and without too much paint, and a bit carefully, need to go a bit long, but sort of come out from the sides, and maybe sometimes it's a bit better to, if you can, it's better, like I was saying before, to do it in the direction that they grow. So I'm going to give it 3 on each side. And then just to give it a bit of stability, it's going to give it a shadow. So under, so I'm just using the Payne's grey for this. And I'm not going to have to be too careful with this. And it's not a block colour either. And then under these, but then if you imagine, it's going to sort of, its whole body is going to be casting a shadow on the ground. And like I said before, you can paint it standing on grass. Keep hitting my phone. And then just quickly, I moved it out the way for you. I'm going to put some white into the top to lighten it up a little bit. And for white, where I'm using gesso, I think I've run out of white watercolor. So just to lighten up the top part. I mean, in watercolor, using white is cheating a little bit, but it's okay, we can cheat. Ah, it's not even showing. You can use gouache as well. Why it's not? sometimes it takes a bit of experimenting to get things the way you want. And you try it once, and the next time it comes out completely different. Not painting on that well. So could go back in with more colour. And paint in between the spikes. I think you could keep painting the body and the spikes for over and over again, really. But you need to stop. Okay. Yeah, with this body at the top now. Okay, so let me stop here and I'm going to stop the recording. So I hope everybody enjoyed that, and we'll look at everybody's paintings next.